In this video, I'm going to go through the lab that we just completed. This is lab 8. So there's some interesting things there that we'll talk about. And I've got my open code. I'll just go through it, annotate it as we go. So this one, we're going to open a text file is the main idea. We're then going to read in the information from the file. I'm just doing a line of text, but you certainly could customize it to do more. Okay. And then for each of the letters from small a, from big A to big Z and small a to small z, we're going to go through and calculate how many times that occurs in the line from the file. Okay. And then we're going to print out percentages. Okay. So there are some challenges here for sure. I think that one thing to think about is, and the count is the real trouble. So if you're thinking of having to do an if statement for each letter, that's probably the bell should be going off. This is not the way to do it. Okay. So I didn't think of this during the lab until I started actually working on it, that that way is, you're not going to want to have, that's what, 52 characters. You're not going to want to have 52 if statements. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. So there has to be a better way. So as I thought about it, I came up with, I think there's a better way that I'll explain as we go along. Okay. So it starts here with, of course, our old friend, the IO stream, as always. Okay. We also have to include the file stream, okay, the F stream, because we're going to be using a file. I'm including the string, although I'm not sure I need it. And I'm going to be using a set precision, so I've included the IO manip. Okay. So I start here with the struct, which I'm calling the letter type. It has a char called character and then an int called C. That's all it is. Okay. And here are my function prototypes. I should have made a better note of there. Okay. So the problem asks for an open file, which takes passing by reference an if stream variable. I'm calling mine in file. And then we've got, and that returns the string of that first line. Okay. Then I've got some void functions, a populate array, which the book doesn't mention, but we're going to create an array of structs. And you don't want to have to do that one by one. And that looks ugly in main. So I went ahead and made a function for it. So I'm calling that the populate array. Okay. And that's a void function. It's going to take a letter type array. Okay. And an integer, which is going to be for the size. Okay. So on that, I don't have to worry about passing by reference because since it's an array, it automatically passes by reference. Okay. In fact, when I try to pass by reference, it gave me an error. Okay. Because you can't do that. It's default. Okay. Then I've got my count function, which is going to take the array, the size of the array, and then the input string we get from the open file. Okay. And then I'm going to print out what I need to print out. Okay. So the int main's relatively straightforward in that we've got a string for the file name. I'm setting my constant int size equal to 52. That's for the A to Z in both small and lower. Okay. I'm then entering the file name. Okay. I'm then creating, and this should be in an if, and I just didn't make it. I should be testing to make sure whether or not that I'm going to actually have a valid file name, but I'm not. Should be. Okay. Then I'm creating a string called line, which is going to catch the output of the open file input file. Okay, so this is going to go through, and again, for my case, it's going to print out, or it's going to capture as a string the first line from my file. That's all that does. Okay. So, and then I could have done this in the opposite order, but now I'm going to populate the array. I'm going to send the letters, which is my array of letter types. Okay. I'm going to send the letters and the size to that. That's going to go create the array and put things in the letters array. Okay. I'm then going to count, which sends the letters, the size, and then the line of data we have. I'm then going to print by sending the letters, the size, and then I'm sending the length of the line here because I use that in calculating my percentages. Okay. And then I'm closing my input file. Okay. So the open file should be relatively straightforward. I'm passing in the in file, which I've already opened. Okay. And then I'm just getting a string called file C for the file contents. And then I'm doing this if on this get line in file C. So the get line reads from the in file a line of text. So until it hits a new line character. and it then saves that in this file C variable. Okay. So if that is okay and doesn't return any issues, I just return a file C. If not, I return the string no file, which is probably not good because it's probably going to, that probably should just be nothing. Okay, it returns nothing. It has to return something, but that something's just an empty string. Okay. So its populated array also is fairly, okay, here's where things get complicated in this. Okay, so we think about the ASCII values that we're going to use. Okay, so a capital A starts at 65, and you can look that up. Okay. And remember that chars are integers in a weird kind of way. So I can say a capital, so single quote A, capital A, single quote, +1 refers to a capital B, and so forth. Okay. So I can go all the way through from big A to big Z with this loop. Okay. So again, I'm going from 0 up to size -2. My size is 52, so this is going to go up to 26. Okay, I plus plus. I've created this generic letter type here, X. So that's the struct I'm using. I can then assign the character equal to capital A, okay, which has the value of 65, plus I. So the first time through, I is equal to 0, okay? So that goes into the first position, okay? The next time it's equal to a capital B and so forth, up through the Z, okay? I'm then setting my x.c, which is just the count, equal to 0. I'm now adding it to array. Okay, so if I wanted to put some, and I should here, I'm going to set up the struct instance. Okay, and I'm going to add struct to array. That's what this is doing. Okay, for the first half. Okay, so this is basically deal with A to Z. Okay. So the next thing here we have to deal with, we're going to have to deal with little a to little z. Okay. And this would have been super simple if after big Z came little a, but that's not the case. Okay. There's some other stuff in the middle. So it turns out that 97 is the first character that little a is. So little a is 97. Okay. So I'm going to go from size equal to I equal to size divided by 2. Okay. As long as the I is less than size. Okay. So I'm going the rest of the way I plus plus. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to set up the struct instance, the X character. It's going to be 97, the A, plus the current value of I. So the first time we start with this, it's size -2. So if I do I minus size divided by 2, that's going to be 0 the first time. Okay. And then as that goes up, it'll basically go up 1 per time, 0, 1, and so forth. Okay. I'm again setting the count equal to 0. I'm adding that one now to the list. Okay. So this saved me a lot of lines of code. Okay. And if something seems like it's going to be a whole lot of lines of code, it's always wise to think a little deeper to see if there's an easier way to do it. Okay. And then when I get to my count, now that I have the rest of it, not too bad. Okay. But again, there's a trick here too. So in this case, what I'm going to do, and I'd said you can either go through character by character and then try to search through or go through a line by line or whatever you want to do. So I finally decided that was not a good idea. So what I'm doing basically, I'm looping through my letter type array. So capital A, capital B, so forth, all the way to little z. That's what I'm looping through. Okay. For each of those, so we can go ahead and put a comment here. So we're going to loop through A to Z, then little a to little z. Okay. So that's what we're going through on that one. Okay. What this loop then is doing, okay, notice I'm going from this one from 0 to the line length. The line is from the file. Okay, it's what you got from the file. So for this one, I'm going to loop through the file string we got from the file, looking for the character from above. Okay. So the first time I hit this point where I'm at, okay, this ARI dot character, I is going to be 0. That's going to be a capital A. So I'm checking here to see if capital A is equal to line sub j, which is line sub 0, which is the first character of the string that came from the file. Okay. And this is going to go through this input from the file line by line. If it's the letter I'm looking for, I'm going to increase the counter by 1. If not, I'm going to keep going. Okay. So when this for loop is done, so when I'm to here, I will have counted all the capital A's. I go back, get a capital B, go through there. Okay. Again, this also is going to save you a lot of time. Okay. And then the print, getting the print to be exactly what I wanted was a little picky, but it wasn't too bad. Okay. So I know I'm going to have to go through the entire letter type array. Okay. And print out the character and then print out the percentage based on the count. Okay. So that's why in this one, I'm including the length. So the length was just the string length. So I don't need the string that came from the input file. I just need to know how long it is. That's all I'm worried about here. Okay. Oh, and I set up a variable here that I ended up not using. So I'll get rid of that. Okay. So I'm just going to go for every member of the letter type array. So from big A to big Z, little a, little z, all those I'm going to go through. Okay. And this is what I didn't need also. I'll copy that over. What I had to do. So to test this, I started by just going through and printing out the character and the C, which is the count. Straightforward enough. Okay. Then I wanted to get the percentage. So I took the C, so the AR bracket I dot C, that's for AR bracket I for that letter, that's the count, divided it by the length. Okay, length is how many characters there are, multiply by 100. Okay, that was fine. And then I put the percent sign. The problem is that gave me a 0 every time. So I had to think about that. And it's because AR sub I dot C, the count, is an integer. The length is an integer. When we divide an integer by an integer, we get an integer. Okay. So since that's always less than 1, because it's never 100%, then if I multiply it by 100, so that percentage comes out 0 times 100, which is 0. I was getting a 0 everywhere. Okay. So to do that, to get that to work, I had to change one of the variables, and I just happened to change the first one. It doesn't matter. So I had to do a static cast double on the AR sub I dot C. Okay. And that's fine. I could have just, if I wanted, I could have static cast the length before I got into the loop. And that was probably would have been cleaner. That's fine. Either way. And then I multiply it by 100 to get the percentages. Okay. And then assuming I haven't messed it up somehow, we can go ahead and take all this extra one I had before. So on this one, my file example, well, let's look at my file first. Well, I'm too late. Example.txt. And now you see that I get the printout. It's not the prettiest thing, but you get the idea. So it was 7% for an A, 7% for a B, no E's. And then I put some lowercase letters in here. Okay. And what I did, I had a simpler example at first, just this first part, and I was able to count and print out the count just to make sure that things were working. Okay. And I'm fairly confident that this is working correctly. Okay. So again, there's a lot to take in there. And I think this is worth your time to take a look at it. And again, this is based on the idea that characters are ints in some way. They're like a specialized integer, which means if I add 1 to a capital A, I get a capital B. If I add 1 to a little a, I get a little b, and so forth. Okay. So that was kind of the idea. And then that allowed me, when I'm populating the array, to do it with 2 for loops. I had to do the 2 for loops because there's that area between big Z and little a where there's just some, random punctuation marks. Okay. And then in the count, I was able to count through the letters A to Z and then A to Z again, and then check each of those through every character in the input I got from the file. Okay. So some things for improvement. Again, I needed to check up in int main to make sure this was a valid file because it's not. Okay, so that was this problem here. This was an issue on this line. Okay. And I think the other thing is that in this one here in the open file, again, I'm assuming that we just have one line. Okay. And I certainly could have gone through and gotten every line and just concatenated that into my string. And that would have been fine as well. That would have allowed for multi-line files, which is probably a better idea. Okay. But in general, that hopefully that's a good explanation. If you have questions about that, make sure you let me know.